today. He'll be back next week, but it works out. I've been gone for 6 days, so I got plenty that I want to get to on the show today. And of course, Mike Borgonzi going to speak to the media following the trade deadline at 10 a.m., and we will bring that to you live and in its entirety. Parker, how's it going? I appreciate you and Dr. Crane holding down the fort for me while I was gone. You guys did a great job.
It's going good, and we missed you. Hope you had a lot of fun in Paris. Can't wait to hear all about it. I hope we dedicate this whole first segment to Paris.
Because we can start with it.
It was a great time when I went. So.
Yes, it was fun. I did not realize that traffic could be as bad as it was in Paris because, we're going around in a bus everywhere, and it's tough to navigate those streets with all the people, all the bikes, all the cars. It took us like 45 minutes to get anywhere around Paris, whether it was a mile away, 3 miles away. If you were going somewhere, whether it was practice, the arena, we went to the Louvre, we went to the Eiffel Tower. Like, it took you almost an hour every single time. But I did love Paris. It's always a unique experience to go over to these old European cities and just see how different it is from, any city in America outside of maybe some of the older, like Boston and stuff like that. But it was great. Got to see all the sights and got to try some great food. And of course, Vandy got the win on Monday, which was great.
Arguably the most important thing while you were over there. Did you make it through the entire Louvre?
No, we only got about an hour. So we did the Louvre the day we got there. So got off the plane and dropped our bags at the hotel and pretty much went straight to the Louvre. And it was cool. We got to go see, saw the Mona Lisa. That's obviously the big one that you want to go check out.
I'm sure it was crowded too.
It was, I reached over and took a picture, and, that was cool. And we went through a couple of the wings, but the Louvre is so big, it would take hours to get through everything. But did get to see a good amount of it. That was cool. We did a river cruise on Saturday. And got to
on the Seine River, was
yes,
that? Yep. Okay.
Yes.
Or
it was on one of the boats that they used for the opening ceremonies of the Olympics. And so we got to go up right at 10 p.m. when the Eiffel Tower lights up and it starts flashing and flickering. We got to see that as we rolled by. So that was really cool. I would say that was probably the highlight of the trip, outside of the win, of course. It was a little bit nerve-wracking for me the whole trip, just to go a little bit behind the scenes here. The arena provided the equipment for me. I didn't travel with my usual gear, and, not having my own gear gives you a little bit of nervousness throughout the whole trip that it's not going to work out. And so I had to share with the Baylor crew who had the game before us. And man, I was nervous the entire time until I heard the breaks from 94.9 on my headphones right before pregame. But
that would make me nervous too.
It was nerve-wracking, but it all worked out. We got on air. We called the game. Vandy got the win. Quickly on the game, 19-0 run in the third quarter for Vanderbilt. It was a slow start, as I think it always is for some of these teams. Starting the season, sometimes the shot isn't quite where you want it to be. I think Vandy shot 25% from the field in the first 15 minutes of the game, which it happens. But 19-0 run in the third quarter, able to pull away, won the game 74-65. And that's an important win. Cal is a tournament team from a year ago, one of 4 power conference teams on the non-con schedule. Michaela Blake's 27 points in her first game, despite maybe not shooting the ball at the clip that she usually wants to. But lots of fun. Very happy to be back. Yesterday was a very long day. We left Paris at 10 a.m. Paris time and got back at 10 p.m. Nashville time. So 5 a.m. Paris time. So I was
basically a whole day.
Right. I stayed up the whole time. I watched 4 movies on the flight from Paris to Atlanta and stayed up and slept through the night. So not feeling too much jet lag, but excited to be back. And again, I missed a ton over the last week. So we've got a lot to get to. Again, Mike Borgonzi is going to speak at 10 a.m., and we will bring that to you live in its entirety as he recaps the Titans' moves at the trade deadline. I will say on the flight yesterday, I didn't you could have gotten Wi-Fi. I didn't. I just watched movies on the seat back or whatever. So I missed all of the trade deadline craziness and had to catch up on all of it as we hit the ground in Atlanta. I turn off airplane mode and start getting all these notifications. And I thought some of it was fake. I'm getting texts from people about Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams, and I couldn't believe it was real. The Jets embracing the tank completely yesterday, sending away Quinnen Williams to the Dallas Cowboys, getting back a first-round pick in 2027, a second-round pick this year, and defensive tackle Maisie Smith, and then sending away Sauce Gardner to the Indianapolis Colts for 2 first-round picks. So 2 things that I can gather. The Jets, they're ready, to ship off a lot of their talent. And I said to Ian before the show, if you're trying to compare the Titans and Jets, the Titans really the only player who's worth anything on their roster outside of Cam Ward, who you're obviously not going to trade, is Jeffrey Simmons. And the Titans have stayed steadfast that they were not going to trade Jeffrey Simmons. They thought he was an important piece of this team's future and the culture, so they didn't trade him away. But the Jets have a lot of young, talented players. Quinnen Williams isn't quite super young anymore, but still one of the best defensive tackles in the league. They get great value for him. You got Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson as well, who I think both of those guys, yes, they signed extensions, but I wouldn't have been shocked if Garrett Wilson was being shopped as well. And man, did they get great value back for Sauce Gardner. I know Sauce is a great player. He is probably a top 10 cornerback in this league at minimum. But if you can get 2 first-round picks back for a cornerback who you're paying a lot of money to, you can't really say no to that if you're the Jets. And the Colts are going all in on this year, which it's debatable whether they should, but clearly Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen and that Colts front office, they believe this is a year that they can go make a run, and they go out and pay premium pricing for Sauce Gardner to come in and finish off this secondary.
Yeah, I think Frazier and I were talking about college basketball whenever the Sauce Gardner news dropped. And we were talking, and I dropped my phone on the air, jaw hit the table, and Frazier's like, what's going on? I'm like, Sauce Gardner just got traded to the Colts. And I thought it was a joke too. But then I saw Ian Rappaport had tweeted it. I saw Adam Schefter had tweeted it. I'm like, okay, this is real. But it's kind of crazy too, because Sauce Gardner, he's still a top 5 corner in the NFL, but he hasn't had the season that he's had in the past. He's kind of struggled with some penalties, but yeah, they're going all in, and it's hard for the Jets to say no. The problem is you don't know what those first round picks, if they're going to work out or not. That's the only issue.
Well, the Colts now the Jets now have their first round pick this year, along with the Colts first round pick this year. And am I correct in saying in 2027, they now have theirs, the Cowboys and the Colts?
3 first round picks in 27.
So,
and then 2 this coming year, and then 2 second round picks.
I know I heard Paul and Joe this morning on Robbie and Rex Road talking about, should you be rooting for the Titans to get the first overall pick? I am with Paul of, you don't root for your team to lose. And when the Titans are playing and they're those 60 minutes of game time, I think Titans fans should be rooting for the Titans to succeed. But you also have to look at the long term of this. If the Titans do get the first overall pick, I think the Jets would be willing to part with either both of their first round picks this year, or maybe a first in this year or a couple in next year to move up and go get a quarterback. Who knows who that quarterback will be? Fernando Mendoza has been the name that's been out there the most. But the Titans could take advantage of a Jets team that is clearly primed to try and make a move up in the draft for a quarterback. The Browns also have multiple first-round picks as well after that trade with the Jaguars for Travis Hunter last year. So lots of options for the Titans if they do end up with the first overall pick, and the Jets now have 5 first-round picks in the next 2 years. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Crazy trade deadline day yesterday. I mean, I could not believe the Colts did that. And not only does it mean they go all in this year, they're all in on Daniel Jones now, because you don't have a first-round pick in either of the next 2 drafts. They're going to extend Daniel Jones. And is the Linsanity run going to continue for Daniel Jones? I mean, he had 5 turnovers last week against the Steelers?
So, yeah, something. I don't think it was 5. It might have been off to double check, but the Steelers defense showed the old steel curtain.
No, they're good.
Defense.
Right. And that it was a bad game. And I don't think you can say that Daniel Jones is coming back to earth off of one game, but it's been half a season of Daniel Jones looking like he could be a quarterback that can take you maybe to the AFC Championship game. Is that going to continue through the playoffs, or do you think that he turns back into a pumpkin when he has to face Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or whoever it ends up being in the playoffs? So the Colts, they've committed to Daniel Jones, and they go out and get Sauce Gardner. The AFC does look vulnerable this year. Like, the Bills have been beatable. The Chiefs have been beatable. The Bengals, Joe Burrow's out. They've blown a couple of games late over the last couple of weeks. Probably not going to make the playoffs. The Ravens are digging themselves out of a hole. Maybe this is the year to go for it. But I just don't know if I believe in Daniel Jones, no matter who you have around him, that he can go and beat the Bills and the Chiefs come January. Wes from Hermitage on the text line says, the funny thing is the Colts literally traded 2 first-round picks just to try to beat the Bills or Chiefs in the playoffs. Yeah, there you go. That's a huge payout just for a possibility. Just glad they don't have first-round picks for a while. And that's true. If Daniel Jones doesn't end up being the guy they hope he is, the Colts have set themselves back for a few years because they won't have a quarterback. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'd love to hear from you. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Thrilled to be back after missing the last week out in Paris with Vandy women's basketball. Lots to get to on the show today. We're going to dive into the Titans trade deadline. Made a couple of moves over the last month or so. Jarvis Brownlee Jr. started it off, trading him to the Jets. Roger McCreary last week, and then Draymond Jones this week to the Ravens. We'll go through what the Titans were able to do. Should they have done more? And again, Mike Borgonzi going to speak to the media coming up at 10 o'clock. Off and rolling on this Wednesday. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up here on 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 1025, The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you. Thrilled to be back in the US of A after spending a week in the other red, white, and blue in France. Today on Totally Hits 93.3, catch MTSU men's basketball as the Blue Raiders take on Milligan at 10:30 a.m. Coverage is also available on the Totally Hits Nashville app and at totallyhitsnashville.com. Before we get into the Titans trade deadline, I do see some chatter in the YouTube chat. Witty Banter and Sarek ME both talking about the Preds getting robbed last night, and I did see this. Didn't get to watch the game, but I was scrolling through Twitter towards the end of the game on my way home, and what a crazy game, first of all. Steven Stamkos just barely getting the puck across the goal line with 0.3 seconds left to send it into overtime. And then I do not understand how that was ruled a goal in overtime. Did you see this last night, Parker?
I did not.
So, Justus Annunen knocked the goal off as there was a pass coming across. I don't even think it was a shot. It was a high danger scoring chance, but in the rule book, it says that if the goal gets knocked off while there is a quote unquote high danger scoring chance, it has to look like it was going to get in between the pipes, right? It has to look like it was going to be a goal before the goal gets knocked off. And it pretty clearly missed it. And even the second chance on the back post missed. Like, it hit the side of the net. I do not understand how they ruled that a goal.
Oh, I see what you're talking about now. I pulled up Twitter and it was the first thing that popped up.
Yeah. So the Preds got robbed. At the very least, they still got 1 point because it was an overtime loss. But you never know how that would have turned out if they had ruled that correctly. Ends up being a 3-2 OT loss for the Preds. And that's a tough one to swallow because the Preds have had a couple of really close games where they've come up just short. You look back at that Montreal game during the Canadian road trip, and I just do not understand how that ended up being ruled a game-winning goal. Matthew in Nashville says the refs thought we knocked the goal on purpose. I don't know how you can say, I don't know how you can say that because he was just sliding over trying to make the stop, and I don't understand it. Anyway, back to the Titans. Trade deadline was yesterday. Kind of a quiet trade deadline day for the Titans. They didn't do much yesterday, but did make a couple of moves leading up to the trade deadline. You look back at the Jarvis Brownlee Jr. trade, which PK on Robbie and Retro this morning said he is going to ask Mike Borgonzi about in his press conference coming up at 10 a.m. And I can't wait to hear the answer on that. And I'm very glad that, at least from what we've heard, it is just Mike Borgonzi speaking at the podium today. No Chad Brinker.
No Chad Brinker. We get to hear from Mike Borgonzi himself.
Right. Mike Borgonzi going to be able to answer all of the questions instead of just the ones that Chad Brinker points to him on. So I'm excited to hear his answer on the Jarvis Brownlee Jr. trade because every week that starts to look worse. I mean, you had a promising young cornerback who had his issues, penalties, and you could tell that there was maybe some attitude issues last year, saying it was too cold in Washington, D.C., and that's why he didn't play very well against the Commanders. There were clearly some red flags with Jarvis Brownlee Jr., but you moved up a handful of spots from the 7th round to the 6th round to send him away to the Jets, where he's been a very productive player for New York. So that is something I am excited to hear from when Mike Borgonzi speaks at 10 a.m. Then you trade Roger McCreary. You turn that 6th round pick into a 5th round pick now. And so you're slowly sliding up the draft board. The big move for the Titans was Draymond Jones, trading him to the Baltimore Ravens. It is a 5th round pick now, but can turn into a 4th if he gets 2 more sacks the rest of the season and Baltimore makes the playoffs, which right now, Baltimore, not currently in a playoff spot, but the way that division is trending and Lamar Jackson back healthy, wouldn't shock me if Baltimore ended up in a playoff spot at the end of the year. So you could end up getting a 4th round pick for Draymond Jones, who you signed to a 1-year deal in free agency this past year. It's tough for Denard Wilson because his pass rush was finally starting to make some plays. 6 sacks against LA on Sunday, and then you trade away the guy who's got 4 sacks in the last 4 weeks. But that's value that you couldn't pass up if you're Mike Borgonzi. And you add another pick. That's now 9 picks in this draft for the Titans. And if it's a 4th round pick, that's huge. That is huge for the Titans to get another one in those top 4 rounds. Maybe that turns into, You took Alec Iamander late in the 4th round last year. If you can get a player who you feel that good about in that spot, again, all hypotheticals at this point, but trading away a guy who was on an expiring deal, I feel like that was a great move for Mike Borgonzi and maybe more value than I thought they could get for Draymond Jones.
Well, it's more value than what you would have gotten for him, let's say, before the season started. So I think his value went up around just because based on what he's done the last 4 weeks. So the value was there. The only problem is he looked really good against the Chargers on Sunday. And I know the Chargers offensive line has had injury issues of their own, but still, he looked really good. And now you don't have him. And to be honest, I thought the Titans were going to trade away Arden Key too, but they didn't. So they held on to him. But who's going to rush the passer now? It's just Arden Key. It's Jeffrey Simmons when he comes back, whenever that'll be. It's Jihad Ward and Jalen Harrell.
Jalen Harrell's on the team. I mean, you would hope Femi Oladejo can come back at some point this year, but with the fracture in his leg, I wouldn't say you're counting on him.
To be honest,
back.
I forgot about him.
Right.
Because he was on IR.
I think Femi, there's an okay chance that Femi just, they say, you know what, take the rest of the year. We don't want to risk it for a team that's 1-8. Ali Gay is on IR too. Maybe he comes back and can be a rotational piece for you. But you're right. Like that edge group that was thin to start the year and finally started producing over the last few weeks now is back to being super thin. And you don't know if, can Arden Key, when he gets back healthy, and Jihad Ward still bring that production that we've seen over the last couple of weeks. Do want to give credit to Sebastian Joseph Day, who had a great game on Sunday, because I said a few weeks ago, I kind of forgot he was on the roster because he hadn't made any flashy plays. He's out there and he has been a consistent player for this team since they signed him last offseason. But that play where he forklifted the right guard into Justin Herbert was awesome on Sunday. And I would have loved to see Jeffrey Simmons play that Chargers offensive line because they were wet toilet paper out there.
Oh, he would have eaten out there. He would have eaten.
That was horrible from that team. And Joe Alt getting hurt, you never want to see a guy get carted
for
off.
The second time this year. And now he's done for the year.
Right. Like that's never what you want to see for a young player, but I was listening to the game because I couldn't get a stream out there. And, they're talking about how they don't have another tackle on the roster outside of the guy that they had starting at right tackle. They had to just put a guard there. And the Titans defensive line, credit to them, they took advantage. 6 sacks didn't help them get a win, but you got 6 sacks in the game. Now Draymond Jones is gone. You mentioned Arden Key not being traded. I wonder how much value was out there for Arden Key, a guy who, he has a flashy game or two here and there, but has never really been a consistent producer. And we'll talk about this a little more in the next segment, but I do like that the Titans seem to stand firm on their value and didn't just trade away guys for the sake of trading them away. And Denard Wilson's in a tough spot already with maybe your best edge rusher that you've had this season now out the door. Your 3 best cornerbacks are no longer playing. Sending away Arden Key for a late round pick swap maybe doesn't serve the best interest of this team if that was what was being offered. And I get it if they were saying, do we want to turn our last 7th into a late 6th just to send away Arden Key? But I think this defense, as Paul and Joe were saying, how do you look Denard Wilson in the eye and send away Arden Key and Draymond Jones there and say, hey, you got Jalen Harrell and Jihad Ward starting on the outside for the rest of the year. Good luck. By the way, all 3 of your starting cornerbacks are no longer available as well. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. 6641 says, I think the Titans are doing a great job at starting their rebuild, or at least the Borgonzi side of the front office is having a great start. Got a few good-looking rookies, moving expiring contracts for picks, and they're giving every young player they have a chance to play and show what they've got. He says, just need more top 3 round picks at the end of the day, and I don't think anyone would have much to complain about with Borgonzi. I agree. There's not much to complain about with Mike Borgonzi so far. The Jarvis Brownlee Jr. trade is the big black mark. And again, we don't know what happened behind the scenes. We'll see if Paul Kaharski is able to coax a better answer out of Mike Borgonzi coming up at the top of the hour. Wes from Hermitage, going back to the Preds game last night, says, after reading the rules a few times, I think it was a good call. Tough break for the Preds, but this is going to be one of those games and goals that rewrites the rules next season. If the opposing team knocked the net off, then I would be with you. But it was our goalie that knocked it off with little traffic in front of him. The very, very last shot was the goal, not the two you were talking about. Okay, so I guess there was another one that I must have missed. But still, a very strange way for a game to end between the Preds and Wild last night. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We will get to your phones on the other side. Do we think Mike Borgonzi should have done more at the trade deadline? Lots of other names. We mentioned Arden Key. The two big guys in the middle were also mentioned in possible trade packages. Tavondre Sweat, Jeffrey Simmons. We'll talk about them on the other side. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Wednesday. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Taking stock of the Titans' trade deadline moves after it passed yesterday. Titans didn't make any moves after the Draymond Jones trade on Monday, but still were able to stockpile another pick, now with 9 in the 2026 draft. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you. Let's go to our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Our friend Trey is on the line. Trey, thanks for calling. Good morning. Go ahead.
Hey, buddy, I'm glad you're back safe.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It's great to be back.
Oh, hey, I wanted to ask you, did you take any of your own seasoning for that food over there in France? How was that food over there?
It was good. It was very good.
Was it bland? Was it bland?
Depends on what you tried. There was some of it that you wish you did bring your own seasoning, but no, there was definitely had some great meals over there.
Hey, and another question I have for you: how was immigration? You know, they like to shake Americans down when we go out of the country. How was immigration?
I gotta say, it was super easy. It was mostly automated. You walked into this little glass box. You stand your passport. It took a picture of you. You walked through. You got your passport stamped. That was it.
You had clear.
No, that was just France. France made it easy.
Oh, nice. Hey, I want to ask you, did you really think the Titans would get rid of Jeffrey Simmons? I think that, with his reputation here, as far as being a hometown name for being here for so long, I think it would have been probably impossible to get rid of Jeffrey Simmons, because I think him and Miss Amy got a bond there. And I think he would be a great foundational piece, but I think Borgonzi knows that. And I think that he didn't really want to get rid of anybody because he really wants to see what everybody has. And I think he's probably just going to pick people up in the draft. But you have a good day, buddy. I'm glad you're back and you take care, okay?
Yep. Thanks for the call, Trey. Appreciate you. It's such a tough question with Jeffrey Simmons, right? Like, I was on if you can get the right offer, you trade him train. But I also understand the other side of, he is a culture piece in this locker room, and he is the one really talented player you have. And what does that say to your team if you trade him away this year? And looking at what Quinnen Williams got, the Jets trade him away. You get a first, a second, and a not replacement, but a placeholder for his spot in Maisie Smith that you could put in that spot. And it's not like you're having to just call up a practice squad piece to take his place on the field. So I'm on the fence about it, really. I don't know what the Titans should have done there. I understand why they didn't want to trade Jeffrey Simmons, especially when you've already fired the head coach and there is kind of a lack of vision in that locker room. There's a lack of culture, for lack of a better word. This team does not really have an identity right now. And if you trade Jeffrey Simmons, that's only going to get worse. So I understand it, but I also look at that. Man, you got a first and a second round pick. That would have been tough for me to turn down for Jeffrey Simmons, because you not only are able to add another top 100 pick this year, then in 2027, you have 2 first round picks. Maybe that helps you get a star player like Jeremiah Smith down the road. I don't know. Looking back, we're going to find out in a couple of years whether that was the right decision. Is Jeffrey Simmons still going to be this elite defensive lineman for the next 3 to 4 years? Or are you going to look back and say, man, I wish we took these picks when we had the opportunity?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. As a fan, it would have been hard to see him go because he's the only elite player that you have. But at the same time, you look at what the Jets were able to get for 2 superstars. I don't think the Titans necessarily had the caliber of player to be able to trade away like that and do what the Jets did. But if you trade Simmons, you get the right offer. I hold out hope that you could at least get a first round pick, if not a very early second. So if the right offer were to come, I'd absolutely take it. But at the same time, I kind of get it, because it's him, the foundation of your defense, and then Cam Ward, who you hope to be the foundation of your offense.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, it's going to be one that you have to look back on and see how it ends up turning out. But man, what the Jets got for Quinnen Williams makes you think, was that offer to Mike Borgonzi for Jeffrey Simmons? Like that's the big question. And maybe He's never going to answer that straight up today, but I wouldn't be surprised if somebody asks, was there a conversation with the Cowboys about Jeffrey Simmons? And the answer to that might tell you all you need to know about whether a similar offer was made for Big Jeff. The other player that was mentioned as a possible trade option that didn't end up going anywhere was his running mate in the middle of that defensive line, T'Vondre Sweat. And I would love to know what the value of T'Vondre Sweat around the league is, because yes, he was a high second-round pick last year. There's clearly talent. You see it every once in a while. The fourth down stop against the Broncos in week 1. He had the sack a couple of weeks ago. But the consistency, the effort hasn't been there enough. And the production, of course, hasn't been there to make him raise that value from a second-round pick. I don't know. A fourth rounder, is that safe to guess what you maybe could have gotten offered for T'Vondre Sweat if you traded him?
I don't know, because he was a second round pick, and the consensus around the league is that he could be a cornerstone player for a defense, and he's so young, so he has time to develop. That's what I've seen.
I just think that draft picks, they lose value. It's like a car. It loses value as soon as you drive it off the lot. As soon as you made that pick, T'Vondre Sweat probably isn't worth a high second-round pick anymore until he proves he's worth more, right?
Yeah, but if I got offered a fourth-round pick for T'Vondre Sweat, I'd feel like I got cheated.
Right, and that's why I think that's probably the best offer they got, and I like that Mike Borgonzi didn't trade T'Vondre Sweat just to trade him, because I think there is concern in that building, and we've heard pretty much that exact sentiment from Teron Davenport when he's been on here. We were having the conversation about who do you think are going to be part of the next core for this Titans team when you move into the new stadium in 2027. This team is hoping to be competitive again. Who's going to be a part of that? And Teron Davenport kind of said, hey, slow your roll on T'Vondre Sweat. He may not be around as long as you think he's going to. And the fact that he was even being rumored in trade talk shows you that this front office isn't completely bought in on T'Vondre Sweat being a key piece of this team moving forward. But you also don't trade him just to trade him. Unless he is a complete locker room cancer and you think he is going to be a detriment to this team moving forward, you don't trade him just to trade him. I would guess the market for T'Vondre Sweat is probably a fourth-round pick right now. And if that's what you're being offered, I don't think you take it. I think you hope that you can find a coach who can unlock him, because there's still plenty of talent. Right now, it's not paying off on the field, but you have an opportunity to go find a coach, and maybe a defensive line coach specifically, that can bring the best out of T'Vondre Sweat, who, when he is playing his best football, he can be a menace in there with Jeffrey Simmons. And that's how they want to build this team, from the trenches. Mike Borgonzi said that if Jeffrey Simmons is going to play the way he did before he got hurt, and you can find a way to get T'Vondre Sweat to play more consistently, that can be a strength of your team as early as next year.
Yeah, and if the Titans were to trade Jeffrey Simmons, again, I would be okay with it as long as you kept T'Vondre Sweat. You can't trade both of them and expect, because T'Vondre Sweat, he could be reaching as the peak of his career by the time that new stadium opens, and he could legit be a foundational piece. So that's kind of how I view the situation.
Yeah, Titans decide not to trade either of their defensive tackles. Jeffrey Simmons, I think, could have gotten you a haul. It is funny. We had the whole conversation. I was saying that I think you could get a first for Jeffrey Simmons, and a lot of people were saying, no, you can't get a first. And then Quinnen Williams goes for a first, a second, and a player.
Which they're around the same age, are they not? Quinnen Williams is a little bit younger.
They're the same draft, right? Quinnen went higher, obviously.
Yeah, I think Quinnen might be a little like a year younger.
I don't know age-wise, but yes, they were both drafted here in Nashville. Quinnen went third overall behind Kyler Murray, who lost his job. I wish we had Nick Frazier on today, because I wanted to talk to Nick Frazier about his buddy Kyler Murray getting benched.
Oh, that was a sore subject yesterday.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it went Kyler Murray, Nick Bosa, and then Quinnen Williams in that draft. Jeffrey Simmons went 19th. So those guys, same draft, similar production throughout their careers. I think you could have gotten about the same package. Must have been hard to turn down. And we'll hear from Mike Borgonzi coming up in just about 15 minutes. We'll carry his press conference live and in its entirety. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We want to get your thoughts on the Titans trade deadline. Our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Later on in the show, the first college football playoff rankings have been released. We'll talk about those. I will catch up on the weekend of college football that I haven't gotten a chance to react to. Lots went on Saturday. We'll talk about that. But there was a report yesterday that has since been debunked about the Titans and former head coach Mike Vrabel. We'll talk about that coming up next. And again, Mike Borgonzi speaking to the media at the top of the hour. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly alongside you on this Wednesday. Hope you're having a great start to your day. Mike Borgonzi set to speak to the media coming up at 10 o'clock. We will bring that to you live. Did want to get quickly to the report yesterday from Mike Giardi out there in Boston of the rumblings around the league that the Titans were refusing to do business with the Patriots because Amy Adams-Strunk did not want to help out Mike Vrabel. And when I first saw this report yesterday, I was like, that is maybe one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. Because if Amy Adams-Strunk is doing that and turning down and forcing Mike Borgonzi to turn down valuable offers just out of spite for Mike Vrabel, it's ridiculous. And you are purposefully hurting the team. I didn't believe it was true from the start, because if Amy Adams-Strunk is doing that, then that is when fans, if they're not already doing it, you need to start bringing your sell the team posters to the stadium, because that is Dan Snyder level activity. Obviously, there's other stuff with Dan Snyder that went on, but that getting way too involved and blocking trades because you don't like the head coach of the Patriots would be absolutely ridiculous. And Paul Kaharski came out this morning and set this all to rest. He said the Titans did not, in all caps, pass on any attractive offer from the Patriots in favor of something else. Amy Adams-Strunk deserves to be blasted for plenty. We don't need to add stuff that did not unfold. And it's completely true. Amy Adams-Strunk has made plenty of mistakes, but I don't think that is something that she would do. Maybe that's the rumors around the league, because people kind of believe that she's a little bit too hands-on and clearly has a grudge against Mike Vrabel, but you cannot hamstring your GM and say, hey, I don't care what value you get from the Patriots, you can't make a trade with them, because that is hurting your team in the short term and the long term.
That would be next level pettiness if that were true. I honestly don't know if it's true or not. I don't really care either. But you know how Bill Belichick in North Carolina and his whole deal with the New England Patriots not promoting anything, not promoting Drake May at all or anything like that. That's kind of, if this were to be true,
right,
that's kind of the same level of pettiness that I think of.
That is a great example of just pettiness for no reason. And I didn't believe it was true. I'm glad to hear that it definitely wasn't true. I'm sure that Mike Vrabel made some offers. I'm sure he likes some of the guys that he coached. I mean, Arden Key is one of them. I'm sure that he at least kicked the tires on some Titans trade candidates, but I think the reason there wasn't a trade that unfolded is probably because there wasn't enough value there, rather than Amy Adams-Strunk was vetoing trades because she doesn't like Mike Vrabel. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Justin from Greenbrier says this season had more hope than the results have rendered. I think the rookie class should give Titans fans some small amount of confidence that Borgonzi might be the guy to right this ship. And I agree with you. I think you like what you've seen from most of the rookie class so far. There's a long way to go for all of them. I haven't mentioned it yet, and I know it's Wednesday, but I miss Monday and Tuesday. Chim Dike finally took one to the house. I have been waiting for this. 13 years between punt return touchdowns for the Titans. They finally got one.
Were you able to watch any of the Titans game?
No, so I wasn't. I listened a little bit, but I was mostly just keeping track on my phone. I saw the Cody Barton pick 6 happened, and then went down for dinner and checked by the score. And I said, I thought the Chargers had the ball. How is it 14-7? And I saw Chim Dike took it to the house. Finally, our long national nightmare is over. The Titans have finally scored a punt return touchdown. It's the first time since 2012, which is just insane to say. So Chim Dike, whether it's in the receiving game, whether it's in the return game, he has been an absolute beauty of a pick for this Titans team, and might be an all-pro as a returner this year as a rookie, and has flashed on the offensive side of the ball. That has been great. Alec Iamaner probably has left a little bit to be desired over the last month or so. Great start to the year, but these rookies hit a wall at some point, and I think he has, whether it's drops, whether it's, slowing down on the route against the Colts that maybe took away a play that could have been a touchdown if he could have connected with Cam Ward. So, Alec Manor, you've seen the flashes. The consistency's not there, but at the very least, you feel like you have a piece for next year and moving forward. Femi Oladejo, before he got hurt, had some moments. Kevin Winston's looked good since he's come back from injury. Cam Ward obviously is the most important thing. Right? This draft class is going to be defined by what Cam Ward turns into. Our good friend New York Doug on the text line says, "We'll give you a pass on Cam Ward for a week since you were away. You didn't miss anything. Was usual train wreck." I didn't get to watch it live. I went back and I watched the condensed game. And Cam Ward, it was a step backwards this week, right? Like, I thought the Colts game was a step forwards for him. This week was a step in the wrong direction. The missed play to Van Jefferson on 3rd and long where he short hopped him. I mean, that's a throw where you have to set your feet and rip it. And he kind of drifted and short armed it and put it 5 yards short. That can't happen. And almost threw a pick to Denzel Perryman, just didn't see him. That's something that we've been talking about with Cam Ward is you haven't seen those complete misreads of the defense. That was one of them. He got lucky. It didn't get picked. It wasn't a great day for Cam Ward. He had flashes again, but overall it was a step backwards. I'm hoping the bye week is going to be helpful for Cam Ward to, hey, you've been thrown into the fire for 9 weeks. You've gained some experience. Can you take a step back now and start to show some more consistency? Because we still haven't seen a full game from Cam Ward where he's looked like a guy who can be your franchise quarterback. There's been quarters, there's been halves. You need to see a full game, and maybe that's coming after the bye week. 6641 says, important question that Parker Kelly will hopefully understand from yesterday. When you listened into the game, was the new Titans play guy just blanking hard on Cam Ward? We think that's got to be why Trey hates Cam so much, and Mike Keith was just glazing to 11. No, I did not hear the same stuff that Trey was hearing.
Yeah, Taylor Zarzour must be the best play-by-play radio broadcaster ever.
I got to say, I was not hearing, I wasn't able to analyze with my ears like Trey. So, it wasn't a good day for Cam Ward, but you hope that is going to improve after the bye week. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Wrapping up hour number 1 here on the program. Mike Borgonzi going to speak live to media coming up after this. We will carry it live as he is able to unpack some of the moves made at the trade deadline. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Second hour, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. We are waiting for Titans general manager Mike Borgonzi to step to the podium. Speaking on the Titans moves, non-moves at the trade deadline, traded away over the last month or so, Jarvis Brownlee Jr. and Roger McCreary, and then Draymond Jones traded to the Baltimore Ravens earlier this week. Titans did hold on to a couple of guys who were rumored out there. We talked about Tavondre Sweat, Jeffrey Simmons, Tony Pollard, Chigakonkwo. So likely going to get a lot of answers on what the Titans did do. And I would love to hear about, he's not going to list off the offers he got, but would love to hear from him. And he is stepping to the podium right now. Let's head over to St. Thomas Sports Park.
Thanks for coming out. I thought it was a good opportunity here with the bye week and the trade deadline yesterday, just to really talk about, the roster right now, take you into a little bit of the insight in terms of decisions we've made, and just about the team in general. And right now, the results aren't good enough right now. And we understand that. And we understand the frustration, with the fan base. And we know that we have to earn back the trust of this fan base. One of the things that was, really appealing to me when I took this job was the passion that this fan base has. Coming in here as an opposing team, you could feel that passion, that it meant something to the community, to families here. And I always said, if I'm going to go somewhere, I want to make it impactful. And it's great to be in a place where people care about the team. And I've been here, close to a year now. I have young kids, they're in school. I've got to meet a lot of people in the community, and I feel their passion and I feel their frustration right now. And but we are doing everything possible right now to get this right and to fix it, and we will. I believe we will at the end of the day. And with all the negativity that comes along with losing, it's hard to see any positive signs. But there are positive signs. I want to really thank the coaches right now and the players for their work ethic every day and energy that they come in with every day to get better here, despite the losing. I've been around places where, we're having a tough season like this, and it's hard to come to work, and I don't feel that here. And I think the coaches, let's be real, this is a tough situation for them right now. They moved their families here. They want to come here to win. And, we haven't done that yet. And, but they come to work every day, and their willingness to work with younger players here to develop them. And I think they have developed them. I want to highlight the rookie class that we have. I think it's a special class. I really do. And not just because I was a GM who picked these players, but I do feel like it's a special class, and it's a class that we can build upon. They represent everything that we want in a Titan. From day one, they stepped in this building. Their work ethic, their passion, their drive to get better, and they are getting better right in front of our eyes. And they're all playing, and they're developing. And that's going to help us through the next 8 games here and into the future. Another thing is we have this player development program that we started here. And it's really the best I've seen. And it's been spearheaded by Dave Ziegler and Bryce Wasserman. And they work with all different departments in the building to help these players develop on the field, off the field. So those are the real positive things that I see here, despite the losing, which causes a lot of negativity. I understand that. I just want to take you into some of the roster decisions, a little bit of insight on some of the trades that we made. We are in constant evaluation mode here, with players, with staff, and that comes, with players. It might be talent, it might be scheme fit, it might be culture fit. And, the word culture gets thrown around there a lot. So what do you mean by that? Well, it's the habits that we want to have with our players to create a winning culture here. It's the team first mentality. It's the accountability piece. It's the attention to detail piece. It's their willingness to work and get better every day. So that's what we're looking for when we're evaluating these players. And I know the first trade we made with Jarvis Brownlee was listen, I'm aware of it. It was controversial around here because he's a young player that was ascending, and you're evaluating the fit. And without getting into a lot of details, I like Jarvis, and I think he's going to be a really good player in this league. We don't have the culture right now sometimes to help guys develop right now. And, we thought at the time, just some of the habits weren't conducive to building the culture right now. And I know it's hard to understand because he was a young player, and I wish Jarvis nothing but the best. The Roger McCreary trade, Roger, teammates loved him. You could tell they loved him. Roger's a good player. It's part of the strategy when you're looking at the roster and evaluating the market in terms of, he's in an expiring contract and what's it going to look like next year. And that's the piece when you draft and develop players too, that you have guys coming in here. It had nothing to do with, because I didn't draft Roger. It has nothing to do with that. We found there was some interest with Roger, and it happened to be the Rams, who had owned our 5th round pick from a prior trade. And so we thought that was good value for us. We were at in the draft, we were missing that 5th round pick. So we had a 4th round pick, which was at the beginning of the 4th. And then we had a 6th round pick, which was the beginning of the 6th. So that's about an 80 spot move if the draft had happened that day. So we thought that was good value, really just getting that pick back. And that's the reason why we did it. Draymond Jones, love Draymond. He's really coming on here the last 4 or 5 games. And I think that's why a lot of teams have called on him. And we weren't looking to move on from Draymond right now. But we also have to think about the future of this program and where we're at. And, we had a chance to acquire a pick that from Baltimore that, could be a high pick in the 5th and potentially could turn into a 4th round pick. So let's hope the Ravens go to the playoffs and Draymond has 2 more sacks and we can get a 4th round pick out of it. That's what the conditions were there. And just really just the youth movement too of the roster I want to hit on. We have 11 players on the active rookies right now, 2 on IR with Femi and Mullings, and hopefully get them back here at some point. So that's 13 guys on the active that are rookies. Right now, that's 2nd in the league, I think, right now. I hope that's right, with New England for the most rookies on a roster. So I know there's going to be questions about the head coaching search, which is, we're in the process of that, and I just don't think this is time really to talk about that part of it. So with that, if there's any questions.
When you talk about the habits conducive with Jarvis, I know you probably don't want to get into the specifics of what those were, but can you talk us through what habits you want?
Well, I think I touched on just the accountability piece, attention to detail, the willingness to get better every day. And so I don't want to specifically, touch on that because Jarvis is a great kid, and I wish nothing but success for him.
When you say that there are some times that you can't teach that culture with the program you have now.
Yeah, that's hard to explain sometimes with the culture in the locker room. When you have a standard in the locker room at some point, when you're winning a lot of games, when you bring a player in, they know exactly what they need to do, or they know they won't be there very long. There's a standard there. So we're trying to create a standard. Sometimes that's hard to articulate to people and the fans, but when you're in a locker room, you feel it. And when you're around a winning team, you feel it. I certainly felt it in Kansas City. Every person that we brought in there, they knew right away, if if Pat and Kelsey were out there practicing every day hard, shit, I better be out there practicing every day hard. So we need to create that standard here, and we do have some pieces here. I want to highlight Jeff Simmons. Jeff has been tremendous. Jeff was a player that came in this league and they were winning, and he's gone through some losing seasons here right now. And I communicate with Jeff a lot, and Jeff is a big part of why we're going to turn this thing around here. He's one of the better players in the league, and his leadership with these young guys has been tremendous.
Did you talk to Dallas about Jeff, considering what Dallas gave up for Williams?
I'm not going to get into who we talked. We talked to 31 other teams for the past 3 weeks. So I will not get into any particulars of any moves that we did not make. But I will say with Jeff, just because you asked about Jeff, and I'm not going to talk about any other players here. Jeff is invaluable to us right now, to where we want to go.
When you say building for the future, though, as you did with Draymond, does that not enter into the picture with Jeff as well as you probably your most valuable asset, that could be traded?
Well, you have to weigh those options, and you say it's a business, but like when you weigh those options, you look at it and you say, what do we have here? And he's a pillar here in this organization for what you want, and he's one of the best players in the league in his position. And the way he works every day at practice, I don't know if I've seen a defensive lineman superstar like him, just empty the tank every day at practice. It's impressive. And when your best player does that and younger guys look to him, that's what you want. That's what I'm talking about, being a standard.
Mike, in talking about building culture fit, obviously you drafted Cam #1 overall, and you feel like he brings the intangibles you're looking for.
Yes.
That can be a franchise quarterback. But what do you see from him so far? Because it looks like he has struggled probably more than most #1 overall picks should entering the league.
He looks like a rookie quarterback playing on, a team that had the #1 pick last year. And he is, he's developing, and he's developing with a lot of other rookies too, as well. Right. So we have 2 rookie wide receivers out there playing, Jim and Alec. We have Gunner playing out there. So they are learning together, and they're only going to be better because of it. And I have full confidence that Cam, because of his work ethic, because of his drive, that he will fix things that he needs to fix, just like every quarterback in this league, though. And I have full confidence that he's going to get there.
You promoted McCoy to interim.
Yep.
Part of the rationale there was not to disrupt the defense with Denard, not to disrupt special teams with Bones.
Yep.
Those things have been disrupted by trade. Defense certainly has been disrupted by trade.
Yeah.
Those guys seem to have a little bit more fire than Mike, who's punting from inside opponents' territory. You're getting more conservative coaching from Mike than you got from Brian. What do you think of the job that he's getting?
I think Mike's doing a great job holding everything together here under the circumstances, Paul, really. And Denard is a hell of a coach. And I have conversations with Denard all the time. And, before we made these trades, it's not like we make these trades and don't have conversations. And is he going to agree on all the trades? No, but I think at the end of the day, he understands it. And he understands that he has a job to do, but you say you got a job to do, that's your responsibility to do the job. But his willingness to still do the job is why he's a good coach.
Wouldn't you like to see things be a little less conservative, given that you guys have nothing to lose in terms of the approach from the head coach?
Yeah, I mean, you still have to make smart decisions out there. He's the head coach, and he's going to make decisions that he feels best for the team. And when there's opportunities to be aggressive, we'll be aggressive. But Mike's done a tremendous job here under the circumstances here too, of being the head coach here.
You look at Jeffrey Simmons, like you mentioned him as a top player, and you look at what Denard has been able to do, and then you trade away Draymond Jones. What does it say what Denard has been able to do in the last few games without Simmons, and what's left of your outside linebackers group?
Yeah, no, he's done a tremendous job. He's a great coach. We had 6 sacks last week. And we have Arden coming back here, hopefully here after the bye. So having Arden back and eventually we'll get Jeff here back. We'll see how he looks here after the bye. But tremendous job the whole staff has, really. Tony Oden, his willingness to work with younger corners and guys that we claimed off the waiver wire, because of losing guys from trades and injuries with Snead. So it's been difficult for them, but like I said, like they come in here every day and their willingness to work and try to get these guys better has been impressive, because like I said, I've been in other situations before where you're losing, the culture in the building's bad, but I don't feel that here. I don't.
Some other things you've seen, Mike, I guess from the draft class, and how unfortunate, I guess, that Femi had the injury he did, it kind of halted his progress.
Mm-hmm.
What are maybe some of the other highlights from the draft class?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're all contributing. Obviously, Cam's a starting quarterback in the league here that has some really good moments, really high level throws, and once he puts everything together with some consistency, which I think he will. But he's been impressive. His leadership's been impressive. Like I told you, the whole group's been impressive in terms of the leadership. Kevin, coming off the ACL, basically under a year, and then we got him back out, had a little setback, but he's starting to play and come on, and you see flashes of it. His speed, his athleticism, and then the three guys we took in the fourth with Alec and Chim and Gunner have all contributed. And DK, I think, leads the league in all-purpose yardage right now. The punt return he had the other week. You talk about a dependable player now. That's what he exemplifies. And Gunner, you've seen in flashes. He's going to be a really good player for us in this offense. And then Jackson is on the active right now in a reserve role and just hasn't had a chance. And Mullings was doing some good things on teams before he had the ankle injury. But really happy to see their progress so far.
You talked about earning the trust back with the fan base. Mm-hmm. One thing that I think the fans don't trust is with the dynamic between you and Chad and kind of the opaqueness in terms of what your responsibility is and what Chad's responsibility is. And when it comes to trusting this team to get it fixed, mm-hmm. Chad has been here for a lot of the recent mistakes that were made in some capacity or another. So what are the job responsibilities, and why should the fans trust you and Chad to get it right?
It's a good question. And it's a fair question. And with Chad, I can go back to when we were in Kansas City. There was a few of us that were on that staff there that ended up being 2-14. I think that 2012 year, it was myself, Ryan Poles, Brant Tillis. Ryan Poles is a GM now. It's Bears. I'm here. Brant Tillis is a VP of operations with the Carolina Panthers. So what I'm trying to say is that, like, even though there's, we were losing at the time, there's still really good people in the organization. I get the question. I do. And Chad is invaluable to me. Chad hired me, Amy hired me to really construct the roster. That's what they hired me for. And they empowered me to do that. And what Chad does is, he has knowledge in scouting. He's got knowledge in the salary cap, strategy. Chad is really smart. And Chad supports me with all the decisions that I make. And it's no different in every other organization. You can say the titles and who's above who. It's the same structure in every organization. It's you got the GM, you have your VP of strategy, cap, and then you get the head coach. And whatever title you want to give them, those are the three people that work together to make decisions. And there's no one person that, like, if he's got the 53 this way, like, I'm going to go rogue and just make a pick. But they empowered me to make those decisions here, to draft players, to sign players, to construct the roster. So fair question. I get it, Jared. But just to give you a little insight on that.
How much input will you have in the selection of the new coach, working within that framework?
Yeah. Good question, Harry. We're in the process with it now, but one of the things that me and Chad have talked about too is, the GM and the head coach work together every day. So I think it's imperative that we make this decision. Who's the best leader of this organization coming forward? I know I don't want to touch on the head coaching topic, but I do want to mention this though. But me and Chad have had conversations, and it's important that it's a fit, not only fit for the organization. We want a leader here. I don't care if it's defense, offense. That they have a working relationship with the GM, myself. We'll come together. We'll make the best decision for that.
Where has Snead been since the injury, and would you expect him to play again this season?
Yeah, I just saw LJ yesterday. He's doing great. He's rehabbing. To answer your question, I don't know yet. He's still going through the process of the rehab right now, but Jarris is in good spirits. So
Last year's injury?
it's similar. I don't know exactly what it's similar. I don't want to go too much detail into it. The medical.
There was a lot of people maybe that thought you guys might be more active leading up to the trade deadline as well.
Yeah.
I wonder how much did injuries maybe to some players play a part in maybe not making more deals?
No. We look at everything and the value of it and who's valuable for the team right now. And there's some guys who are on expiring deals this year that still have 8 games here to evaluate, and they've done some good things.
I guess maybe to follow, just to follow on that, I guess how much do you balance, as you said, building for the future, but you still want to field a somewhat competitive team?
Sure, just balance it. We have 8 games left. If we thought there was a value there, like I said, we talked to 31 other teams. I'm not going to get into every discussion we had. And, a lot of teams have called us, obviously. We weren't looking to acquire players at this point. It's more for draft capital for the future. But yeah, that all comes into play.
You guys plan ahead, and so you know who is on an expiring contract. You know with room to change your mind throughout the rest of the season who you're probably planning on bringing back versus maybe not planning on bringing back, what you're going to offer who. When you reach a deadline like this and you have in mind who maybe you don't have in the plans right now, I think some fans look at that and say, well, why wouldn't you get anything now for a guy that's going to walk in 8 games for nothing? How does that factor into your decision making?
You have to weigh all those options. But a lot of the guys that are on expiring deals have done some good things here. We'll continue to evaluate them and to see if, they're a fit here for the future. So we still have 8 games, a lot of games left here to evaluate them.
You talked about when you took the job about how if you took a young quarterback, you had to have a plan for the young quarterback. And you compared that to Kansas City. And we know the plan in Kansas City where Mahomes sat the bench. And what was the plan for Cam and how has that changed? Because I would assume that the plan wasn't to fire the coach 6 games into the draft.
That's fair. What did Mike Tyson say? Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face, right? But yeah, I mean, there's a plan for him, and the plan right now is for him to still develop, and he has been developing. And I give credit to Nick and to Bo and to Mike on his development. That's part of it, the development plan. Now, will the offense change next year? Maybe. But in terms of the fundamentals and mechanics, understanding how to play the position, I think we have some really good coaches here to develop them.
With the amount of cap space you're going to have next year, and with the thinness of the roster, how much are you and your department forecasting at this stage what you might be doing with that money, given who's scheduled to become available?
Yeah, I mean, we're starting free agent meetings here in the early December. But we've been watching the free agents and building a board similar to a draft board with free agents in the league and trying to figure out their market value and trying to figure out our needs at the end of the season. So all that goes into it. Yeah. So, I mean, those discussions are going on right now, Paul.
How much can you do there realistically, given what reaches market at the prime positions where you need help?
Yeah, I mean, we can do, we have a lot of cap space. And like I said, we're going to have to, that's why it's hard when you have the philosophy. You have to stay disciplined to it too, Paul. And we use free agency really you have to fill the roster and you have to be competitive at the same time. But, in the future, we want to draft and develop these guys. But, there will be opportunities if we see a player that deems that is going to help us and we're thin at the position, we're going to attack it.
So is there a way to do both of those things? Be a draft and develop team, not want to try to buy a roster, do the thing in free agency we see teams do and fail to do, but still have so much money you have to spend?
Yeah, I mean, there's a balance to that, right? There is a balance because you have to see where the locker room's at, how many young players you have on your roster at the time. In my, I guess, experience, and listen, there's all different ways to build a team. I'm not knocking anyone else on how they build their team. It's just our philosophy. It's built through the draft, and there's going to be opportunities to supplement players when you feel you have to. But you certainly want it to be, having your roster consist of more younger players that are drafted to really build the culture you want.
In terms of the roster, you talked about Jeff being a cornerstone. You talked about the rookies being building blocks. How many building blocks do you feel like you have on this roster currently? Is it 20, 15?
Those are the things we're going through right now. So you try to identify, at least, I think Cam is one. I think some of these rookies can be. I think Jeff is one. And I'm not going to go through every player on the roster, but you would try to identify maybe like 3, 4, 5 guys. And you saw that in the past with Kansas City. It's like the same 4 guys that have been there for that whole run there, right? So yeah, I do think there's some cornerstone players here that can be part of this. Some of them are younger now and they have to develop, and we need to continue to add to that.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
That was Titans general manager Mike Borgonzi speaking on the trade deadline and much more. We'll react to what he had to say on the other side. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. That was Titans general manager Mike Borgonzi just a few minutes ago, asked about Jeffrey Simmons. Was there enough value out there to possibly entertain a trade for Big Jeff? He said that he is a pillar of this organization and is invaluable to this team. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you next, man up, 102.5 The Game. That was one of the questions that I really wanted answered was, is Jeffrey Simmons considered a long-term part of this team's future? And I think that's about as close to saying yes for Mike Borgonzi as you can get, that they believe Jeff Simmons is not just going to be the best player on a bad team, that he is going to be part of bringing this team back to being relevant. And that's important. They clearly didn't think that the value that was out there for him was worth it, even if they did get an offer similar to what the Cowboys sent the Jets for Quinnen Williams. So Jeffrey Simmons sticks around. Mike Borgonzi raves about him, the culture fit that he is. And obviously there was some more comments about the culture fit that Jarvis Brownlee was not. And those were the two big things that I think needed to be addressed in this press conference was, why didn't you trade some of the pieces? Why did you trade Jarvis Brownlee Jr.? And, Mike Borgonzi's not going to come out and straight up say, hey, Jarvis Brownlee Jr. was not a good fit in this locker room. He was a cancer to this team. But I think you can kind of read between the lines and see that his work ethic, he mentioned accountability as a reason that they made that trade, and obviously was not a fit. They moved him to the Jets. I was really impressed with Mike Borgonzi in that press conference. We've seen guys head out there and, they're the only ones sitting up there and can kind of fold and talk themselves in circles. I thought Mike Borgonzi handled a lot of questions that were tough about Cam Ward, about his decisions, and was able to give a clear vision for what he hopes this team is able to do moving forward. And I thought his opening statement was really impressive, being able to speak to the fans and say, hey, we know this isn't good enough, and we know that you're frustrated, and we know that losing is horrible, but we are doing everything possible to get out of this hole as soon as possible. Right? Like, it's all words, and you have to earn the fan base's trust back on the football field, but it's really it is nice to be able to hear somebody confidently able to spell out what the vision is for this team, and somebody that I at least listen to and trust has the best interest of this franchise in his mind moving forward.
Yeah, and speaking on behalf of Titans fans, I don't think Titans fans are mad at Mike Borgonzi because this is his first year, and early returns are he's hit on a fair amount of these rookies. Now there are some that we haven't seen play yet. Jackson Slater, we haven't seen a lot of Kalel Mullings, Femi Aladejo. We'd like to see more out of him, but at least the fourth rounders, Gunnar Helm, Chim Dike, Alec Aomanor, there's hope that Cam Ward is going to be the guy. So I don't think Titans fans, their anger is directed at him. It's more so directed at Amy Adams-Strunk, Chad Brinker, the whole coaching situation. So he did a very good job of being candid. I don't feel like Mike Borgonzi's been candid with the media, and he did a great job of that.
That's the most we've ever heard Mike Borgonzi speak, I think. I mean, and is that the first time that he's spoken to the media without Chad Brinker?
I think so.
At least that I can remember. I think that's the first time we've heard from Mike Borgonzi and Mike Borgonzi alone in a press conference setting, and I thought he crushed it. Rand Carthon, super nice guy, but you put him up there for 30 minutes in front of the media, and he was going to flounder. It was inevitable that he could not handle that situation. Borgonzi handled everything great in that press conference, and at the very least, Titans fans, you have to feel good that that guy is in charge of building this roster. At least that's what he said. He was asked about the power structure with him and Chad Brinker, and he said that he was brought in to build this roster back up. I have trust in Mike Borgonzi. That's more than I can say from almost anybody else in a position of power in this Titans franchise. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have reaction to Mike Borgonzi's press conference, we'll get to that coming up next. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Join the Chase and Big Joe show this Friday from noon to 3 at Reunion Township at 550 Old Lagardeau Road in Mount Juliet, a brand new luxury apartment community nestled perfectly between Mount Juliet and Lebanon. Resort style living that you deserve. For more information, go to reuniontownship.com. We'll continue to react to Mike Borgonzi's press conference on the other side and wrap up hour number 2 here on Next Man Up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you. Finishing up hour number 2 on this Wednesday. Kind of a strange hour with a long Mike Borgonzi press conference going for almost full 30 minutes out there at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park, but a lot of good stuff from Mike Borgonzi. We're going to get into some college football talk on the other side. The college football playoff rankings released last night. Vanderbilt number 16, Tennessee number 25. Memphis would be in right now, despite being unranked in the college football playoff rankings. But quickly, a little bit more reaction on the Mike Borgonzi presser. Couple of texters in. 6641 says Borgonzi handled every question with as much class as a Titans fan could ask for based on how press conferences have gone for the last 3 years. And I agree with you. I said in the last segment that Rand Carthon had his share of horrible press conferences. And I thought that Mike Borgonzi crushed that one. And winning the press conference doesn't win you any games on the field, but I think Titans fans have been looking for someone to step up and give them some sort of reason for optimism that this team is heading in the right direction. And I think Mike Borgonzi hit the perfect balance in that press conference of understanding the fans' frustration with the way the team is playing right now. Like, you've won 10 games in 3 calendar years. That's not good enough. But I think he also was able to thread the needle of understanding how Titans fans feel and trying to show them that he believes there are reasons for optimism moving forward with this team. He talked about Cam Ward, and I know there are plenty of Titans fans out there who are out on Cam Ward, and I don't understand it. You use the first overall pick on him. You can't be out on him after 9 games. But Mike Borgonzi clearly has full faith in Cam Ward. Yes, he picked him, and his job is tied to Cam Ward too. But he has seen from Cam Ward, I think, the development that you're looking for. Yes, it hasn't been consistent enough, and he said as much. He said he looks like a rookie quarterback on a team that just had the first overall pick. But I think the Titans front office, the one thing that you can tell that they are all bought in on, it's Cam Ward. And Draymond Jones even said on his way out the door, he tweeted out, the NFL's crazy, and he had a message to Titans fans, hey, give Cam Ward some time. He's going to be legit. Not something he had to say. He put it out there, and I think the Titans fans should listen to Mike Borgonzi and realize that, hey, you take a guy first overall, it's not always going to be Jaden Daniels and CJ Stroud and their rookie seasons. And look at those guys right now. Jaden Daniels has dealt with some injury issues, but, hasn't gone into the MVP conversation. And CJ Stroud has taken a massive step back in year 3. So a good rookie year doesn't always mean that you're going to be a franchise quarterback. Lenny says, all right, after listening to Mike Borgonzi, I will give him a pass until 2027. The 2027 season is over. I like most of what he had to say, so let's make the Titans great again. I think Mike Borgonzi, if there's one person in this Titans organization who doesn't have his head on the chopping block right now, it's got to be Borgonzi. He's at least shown some promise in the 10 months that he's been the general manager. And I think he's going to be given a little bit longer of a leash to try and get this roster right. Jeremy in Clarksville asked, do we think the Titans weren't active in the trade market because they don't have players people want? How many players on this roster would start anywhere else? I think it's probably a little bit of both sides, Jeremy, of yes, the Titans don't have a ton of players who are going to draw a whole lot of value on the market, right? Like Arden Key and Chigakonkwo and Tony Pollard and these other names that were rumored out there. It's not like you're getting top 100 picks back for these guys. It would have either been pick swaps or a 6th. Maybe you get a 5th for one of those players, but it's not going to be much. So yes, I think part of it is the Titans roster compared to almost every other roster in the league doesn't have a whole lot of players who would go and make an impact somewhere else. But I think it's also that the Titans felt like there were some building blocks moving forward, and you don't move a Jeffrey Simmons, you don't move a Tavondre Sweat. So it's a little bit of both. I was surprised we didn't get a specific question on Tavondre Sweat in that press conference. Maybe it's because Mike Borgonzi, after he addressed Jeffrey Simmons not being traded, said, I'm not going to talk about any other specific players who weren't moved. So maybe it was just it would be a futile effort to try and ask that question anyway. But Tavondre Sweat was rumored out there, and he ends up sticking around. But I think it's both. Yes, the Titans don't have a Sauce Gardner who they can go, dangle out on the market and hope they get 2 first-round picks back. That it just doesn't exist. But they also, I think, wanted to hold on to a guy like Jeffrey Simmons who can help build this back into a winning culture. And the players being talented is the most important part. You have to bring more talent into this team, but you have to have a winning culture too. This team has to learn how to win. And Jeffrey Simmons is a guy who has been with this team when they have won before. And I think the front office, based on what Mike Borgonzi said, they think that Jeffrey Simmons is going to be around when this team wins again. And I wasn't so sure about that, but the decision not to trade him, and from what we heard from not from Chad Bringer, from Mike Borgonzi, they believe that he is going to be around for a while. Brian on the text line says, my only letdown from the press conference was that he didn't openly say that Chad Brinker has been let go. Other than that, I liked what I heard. Yeah, I don't think Mike Borgonzi is going to be the one breaking that news if Chad Brinker was let go. But, I thought Borgonzi did well. He was asked about Mike McCoy, and he's not going to completely go out there and say Mike McCoy's done a bad job. He backed up Mike McCoy. I think that was the only answer that I felt like I was like, come on, Mike. Mike McCoy has not been good since he's taken over as the interim head coach. But he did say, considering the circumstances, he's held things together nicely. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. If you want to text or call, our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. An enlightening press conference from Mike Borgonzi this morning, talking about some of the recent roster moves and what this team will look like moving forward as they look ahead to the 2026 season. Great to hear from Mike Borgonzi alone at the press conference, and I thought he had a lot of good answers. There will be reaction to what Mike Borgonzi had to say throughout the day on the station, but I did want to get to some college football. We got the college football playoff rankings released last night, first one of the season. Vanderbilt 16th, Tennessee 25th, and the top 12 looking very interesting as we enter early November here in week 11 coming up. We'll talk some college football on the other side. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Wednesday. Next Man Up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, final hour on this Wednesday on 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman and Parker Kelly broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Fun couple hours. Mike Borgonzi speaking to the media. Lots of Titans talk to start off the show. And tomorrow, Teron Davenport going to be with us for his usual Thursday appearance. So excited for that. We will get TD's reaction to everything that Mike Borgonzi had to say. But we do have to talk some college football. The initial college football playoff rankings were released last night. Tennessee number 25 and Vanderbilt number 16. The other in-state school, and for our friend 6641, I do have to mention, Memphis would be in right now if the season ended today. Although being unranked, they would be the 12 seed as there were no group of 5 teams in the top 25. So with Vanderbilt, let's start there. Number 16 in the country. I think that's about where I expected them to be, Parker. Maybe a spot or two higher, but it's about right. They were 9th in the AP poll heading into that game against Texas, and you fall down big early on. You're able to battle back, get it back within 3, almost had the onside kick, but you come up short. But 16, you're in a spot where if you take care of business, you only need a couple of other teams to help you out in order to get into the playoff. And I think if you're Vanderbilt, being 16 in the initial rankings with the schedule that you have left, you feel like you still control your own destiny to get into the college football playoff at 10-2.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk to Clark Lee later today, and I'm actually going to kind of hint around that because I do think if Vanderbilt were to win out and you have a 10-2 Vanderbilt team, and you actually hear this on the intro, a 10-2 SEC team should not be left out.
Right. You hear it once an hour on my show every single day of if you're 10-2 as an SEC school, you're in.
Right. And I did some research and I looked, and I looked at the toughest strength of schedules in the country, and the top 30, inside the top 30 are represented all 16 SEC teams.
Yeah.
So if you compare the strength of schedule from a 10-2 Vanderbilt to, let's say, hypothetically, an 11-2 Georgia Tech or an 11-2 BYU, I think I would give the edge to Vanderbilt. And that's why the SEC is moving to 9 conference games, because the committee is emphasizing strength of schedule.
Yes. And the SEC, the reason you look at this with Vanderbilt and you feel a little bit unsure is because the SEC has been so strong. You got 6 of the top 12 are SEC teams. Right now, Texas and Oklahoma would be the first 2 teams out because of the auto bids. Virginia would be the 11 seed as the highest ranked ACC team, and then Memphis, the group of 5 representative. The one thing that I think does not bode well for Vanderbilt is that Notre Dame is 10th. And a 6-2 Notre Dame being 10th with the schedule that they have left makes me think that if it's 10-2 Notre Dame versus 10-2 Vanderbilt, they would go with the Fighting Irish. And we talked about it last week of you match up those resumes. So let's say Notre Dame ends up 10-2, Vanderbilt wins out, they're 10-2. Your 2 losses would be for Notre Dame, Miami, who is now a 2-loss team, likely going to miss out on the playoff, and Texas A&M, who's undefeated, likely will be in the playoff. For Vanderbilt, it'll probably be Alabama, who could get a bye in the playoff, maybe your eventual SEC champion, and Texas, who I think if Vanderbilt is going to make the playoff, Texas can't make the playoff. So you match up those resumes with Vanderbilt's wins all coming against an SEC schedule, and Notre Dame's wins. Yeah, you beat USC, but most of their wins are coming against the bottom half of the ACC. I would give Vandy the edge, but clearly the College Football Playoff Committee is valuing Notre Dame a little bit higher than I would right now.
And this is why I refer to as logo scouting, because when you do these rankings week to week, you really shouldn't be trying to project or predict anything, because I think most people would take Notre Dame if they played Vanderbilt tomorrow. But if you're looking at the resume, I agree 100%. And that's going to be the case with Miami. It's going to be the case with Utah. It's going to be the case with Texas and Oklahoma, because if you're comparing the two, Notre Dame, yeah, they lost 2 games by a combined 4 points to Miami, who's the 18th ranked team, and Texas A&M, who's third, but they lost the game. And losing has to account for something in the regular season, and their best win is USC.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Texas and Oklahoma both have 2 losses, but have arguably better wins. Oklahoma has a win over Tennessee on the road in Neyland. They have a win over Michigan. Texas has they just beat Vanderbilt, and they have a win over Oklahoma. That's more impressive.
Right. And Texas and Oklahoma would be out right now. Vandy will have to leapfrog both of those teams if they're going to get into the playoff, which I think is probably something that you shouldn't be as worried about if you're Vanderbilt, because Oklahoma still plays Alabama. If they lose that game, they're probably out. They could beat Alabama, but I would pick the Tide the way they're playing right now. And with Texas, they still have to play Georgia and Texas A&M, who are two of the top 5 teams in the country. The odds they win both of those games relatively low. So if Vanderbilt's able to win out, I think you pass both of those teams. BYU and Texas Tech play this weekend. And do you agree with me, Parker, that I think Vandy should be big BYU fans this week, because you would much rather the Big 12 champ just run away with it? Like, have an undefeated BYU and run away with it, and have 2-loss Texas Tech and 2-loss Utah battling to try and get in as a at-large team. Because I think Vandy's resume, if you go and beat Tennessee in Neyland, ends up stacking up better than what a 10-2 Texas Tech or a 10-2 Utah could bring.
Here's the best case scenario for Vanderbilt. There's actually 2 of them. BYU runs the table and wins out and wins the whole thing.
Right.
Because at that point, the Big 12 would not be a 2-bid league.
Yes.
Or Texas Tech were to beat BYU, and BYU, they also play Cincinnati in, I believe, 2 weeks, and they were to lose that one.
Right.
So those are probably the best case scenarios for Vanderbilt.
Yeah, the last thing you want is 2 11-1 Big 12 teams, because 11 wins, no matter what your strength of schedule is, we saw it with Indiana last year, 11-1, it's tough to leave an 11-win team in a power conference out of the playoff. And so Vandy needs as few 11-win teams from the ACC and the Big 12 as possible. The ACC imploding this weekend was huge for Vandy, because it looked like heading into the week that you were pretty sure that the ACC could be a 2-bid league, and honestly, maybe even a 3-bid league if things broke the right way. If Georgia Tech won out, except for losing to Georgia, and Miami won out, missed the ACC championship game, Virginia wins out, there was still a chance of a 3-bid ACC. Now I think that is completely gone, and likely you're only getting a 1-bid ACC, barring chaos where Georgia Tech beats Georgia and Virginia still wins the ACC championship. Like, I think that's the only chance you have at a multi-bid ACC. So that threat is mostly gone. Vanderbilt going to need the Big 12 to work out, and then you need some fellow SEC teams to lose. You need Texas and Oklahoma both to lose another game. And
Which, if you look at their upcoming schedules,
right,
it's very likely.
Yes. So for Vanderbilt, you need help. You do need help. But I think a 10-2 Vanderbilt, with the lasting impression being made on the committee being a win at Tennessee, which way easier said than done. Tennessee is a high-powered offense, and they are tough to beat in Neyland. But Vandy could be playing for a playoff spot. Tennessee likely not playing for much in that game. Vandy, you win that game. That's the last look the committee gets at you, is going into your rival stadium and winning. I think that gives you a very good chance to get in, as long as a couple of things break your way. You need Texas and Oklahoma to lose another game, and you need the Big 12 not to end up with a bunch of teams still towards the top of the rankings. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Ben asks, any chance a 3-loss team gets in? I would say no. This year, last year, it was really close. You could have gone either way on SMU and Alabama, and I think it was a razor's edge, and the idea of not punishing a team that lost in their conference championship game that got SMU in. Last year, 9-3 gave you a chance. I don't think 9-3. You're not holding a watch party at 9-3 this year.
I think there are, because I did my playoff predictions with Frazier yesterday, and I actually had a 9-3 team squeaking in there as the 11, the last at-large spot. I think there is a small, very small chance, but it only comes down to 2 teams, and that would be Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Because Oklahoma plays at Alabama this week, but then they finish the season with Missouri and LSU. Texas has to go to Georgia, and then they finish the season with A&M.
Yeah.
If they were to split that and Oklahoma was to presumably lose to Alabama, but beat Missouri, beat LSU, I think the resume would be better than some of the 10-2. And November brings chaos. So if BYU were to lose to, I would honestly take Oklahoma or Texas over.
Right.
BYU.
And we have this conversation every week about there's so much football left to be played. And would anyone have guessed that Miami was going to lose to SMU this week and Georgia Tech was going to lose to NC State? No. So plenty of things could happen. Vandy could come out flat against Auburn this weekend and boom, the conversation's over. But I think for Vandy, you feel good facing Auburn and Kentucky at home these next 2 weeks to give you a chance going into Neyland. Justin from Greenbrier says, this is what I hate about Vandy going and playing flat against Texas. I knew this was going to be the case because of the history and bias of Vanderbilt. They need to rout Auburn and Kentucky these next 2 home games. And even if they play UT close, they should get in. If they don't, the fans are going to want to riot against this committee. And I agree.
9-3. Are we talking about 9-3 Vanderbilt?
I don't know if that's what Justin's saying.
I hope that's not what he's
9-3 is not going to get Vandy in. And it's tough because I think there are going to be years in a 12-team playoff where 9-3 does get you in. But this is not that year. 10-2 should get Vandy in. And if the committee leaves them out, that's going to be really a tough pill to swallow for Vanderbilt fans. Ricky on the text line says Vandy loses by 2 scores in Neyland. Nothing else is going to matter. I mean, Ricky, I hear what you're saying. Neyland's a tough place to play. And could Vandy lose by 2 scores in Knoxville? For sure. But like, it's not like the Vols have been beaten up on everybody that they've been playing. Even a lot of their wins have been by a razor's edge. I mean, you had to go to overtime to beat Mississippi State. You only beat Arkansas by 3 at home. Vandy going into Neyland and winning, yes, it's their toughest game left on their schedule, but it's very possible that Vanderbilt wins that game. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We'll continue to react to the college football playoff rankings on the other side. A couple other things that we want to talk about. We'll talk about Tennessee a little bit. And also Vandy's game this weekend against Auburn. Hugh Freeze is fired. Maybe an interim coach bump for the Tigers coming to Nashville. We'll talk about it next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly alongside you on this Wednesday. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to chime in. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Couple texts on the text line. 7070 says Tennessee, and this is Alan. Tennessee has not beat a team with a winning record. I have no idea what they are hanging their hat on other than some close losses. Will from Clarksville says something similar. How can Tennessee fans be so cocky after losing to a guy wearing short shorts? I think Tennessee fans they're a little bit too confident about this Vandy game based on historically what they've done in this rivalry, right? Like Tennessee has been the better football program for a very long time against Vanderbilt. But looking at this season, I think it's hard to make the argument that Vanderbilt hasn't been the better football team in 2025. And that's not to say that Tennessee can't beat them in Neyland, because Tennessee is still very talented, and that is one of the hardest places to go win in all of college football. I'm not picking Vanderbilt to win. I think Tennessee will be favored in that game. But I think Vanderbilt has been the better football team this year. And that's going to be the make or break game for this Vanderbilt football team, as long as they can take care of business at home. And these next two games with a bye week in between against Auburn and Kentucky, these are like Parker, are you a golfer?
I enjoy playing.
Okay. This is like that 5-foot putt for par that you should make, but it's a knee knocker, right? It's one of those where it's not a tap in. You got to step up and you got to knock it down. And Vandy, again, they should win these games. I think they're a touchdown favorite against Auburn. They're probably going to be a touchdown or more favorite against Kentucky here on West End. But those are not, it's an SEC game. You're not playing Charleston Southern. You have to go out and you got to perform and you got to win those games. Can you put yourself in the position to go to Neyland with a chance to get to 10 wins? And I've said it before, again, in the open, 10 wins is an SEC school, you're in. That may not be, it may not be true this year, but 10 wins, it gets you in a position to host a watch party and sit down thinking you've got a chance. And that's all you can ask for if you're Vandy. And yes, it would be devastating to win out and go 10-2 and then get left out of the playoff. But right now, Vandy can't control that. All Vandy can control is getting to 10-2. You've got to be able to step up, knock down these 5-footers for par against Auburn and Kentucky over the next 3 weeks. And I do like that there's a bye week in between there, because I think Vandy's going to be fired up for this game. You're coming off a loss where you came out flat, you got punched in the mouth, and you almost dug your way out of it to have a chance on the road against Texas. I think Vandy is going to come out ready to play against Auburn. And then you get the bye week to avoid kind of that trap game feeling of, okay, we did it against Auburn, we'll be fine against Kentucky. I think the bye week allows you to reset and refocus for those final two games of the season. Saturday is going to be fun against Auburn. We'll get into that matchup coming up in the next segment. Ricky said Vandy isn't going to put up the 40 points needed to win. Well, I mean, Tennessee's defense hasn't been all that good this year. And if I'm not mistaken, isn't Vanderbilt averaging like 40 points a game this season? Let's see. Points per game. Vanderbilt is averaging 37.6 points per game. So, Tennessee's averaging 43. Give them credit for that. But they are also giving up a good amount as well. If I can get my computer to load here. Tennessee giving up 31 points per game. So I think it's very possible Vandy could put up 40 points in that game. But Tennessee's offense obviously is very capable of doing the same. Dustin from Hopkinsville, our resident Wildcats fan, says UK is a trap game. And it could be. It very well could be. Kentucky got their first SEC win this past weekend, correct? I was in and out
Their
on
first one.
There we go. I
held Auburn to 3 points, had them in hell the entire game.
I got to say, it was very tough to follow college football out there in Paris on Saturday. Like, it was nice on Sunday. We didn't have much going on Sunday night with the game the next day, so I was able to settle in and pay attention to the Titans game, which started at 7:00 local time. But on Saturday, I paid attention to the Vandy game. I was actually listening to Andrew Allegretto for the most part out there in Paris. But The Tennessee game started at 2:30 in the morning. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm not staying up for that. I wish I could. Joey from Gallatin says, when Tennessee is running on all cylinders, they kept up with Georgia the majority of that game. It's going to be a great game regardless. And I agree 100%. I think Tennessee, when they get things clicking, especially on the offensive side of the ball, that is going to be a tough team to stop. And I said, I think Tennessee is going to be favored in that game. But to act like Vandy has no chance to go into Neyland and win with a playoff spot on the line is insane. Let's go to our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Keegan is on the line wanting to talk some Memphis Tigers. Keegan, thanks for calling. What you got?
All right, guys. I know probably the majority of your demographic don't care to talk about the Tigers, but Jake, you gave me a huge shout out earlier, and I greatly appreciate that, my man. The Tigers are doing great, guys. I'm gonna force y'all to listen to a little bit of it just because we're in Tennessee, and why not? At the moment, we're the only playoff bound in Tennessee, so you kind of got to take it a little
That
bit,
is
man.
true.
We went out. We got Brendan Lewis from Nevada out of the transfer portal, threw a little NIL money out of his way. We brought in Cortez Branham, a wide receiver who's been our wide receiver one and a true difference maker all year. And Ryan Silverfield, as he's done for the past few years, has taken this team, set the standard and expectation, and elevated it for the next year. And that's exactly what's happening here, guys. And, I know at the moment we're not really ranked in the top 25, so it's kind of a joke for Memphis to be in the playoffs to an extent. But at the same time, hey, we're in there. And for all the Vandy and Tennessee talk I got to listen to as a Tigers fan, y'all got to deal with Memphis being the best team in the state. And I just don't know what to tell y'all about that. It's just a fact of life at this point. You know what I mean? All right, that's really all I got. Just want to throw all that out there. Let's go Tigers, man. I really appreciate you, fellas.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Keegan. Appreciate you listening. And we'll give a shout out to Memphis. Yes, they are the only in-state team currently in the field of 12 after the first college football playoff rankings.
Listen, I have no bitter ill will towards Memphis. I know a lot of Nashvillians do. I will be happy if Memphis makes the playoff, but Keegan made the point that I wanted to make. And actually, I saw this from Danny Cannell, which I rarely agree with Danny Cannell, but he said if a group of 5 team isn't ranked in the top 12, I'll even go further to say if they're not ranked in the top 15, why should they make the playoff just because they're the best group of 5?
It's fair. And I think that concession was made by the power conference teams basically to just get everybody on board. But the winner of the American almost certainly is going to get in. Right now, 6 teams with only 1 loss in the American. So Memphis, yes, Memphis right now would get that spot. They're 8-1, but still a long way to go in that American championship game. Going to be a big decider of who ends up being almost certainly the 12 seed in the playoffs at the end of the year. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Let's preview Auburn and Vanderbilt on the other side. We'll have more to talk about throughout the week on this game, but I wanted to talk some Hugh Freeze. Another SEC job is opened up. A quarter of the SEC teams have made a coaching change mid-season now this year. So we'll talk a little bit about Hugh Freeze's firing and maybe if it had to do with playing Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt this weekend. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up. You're on 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you. Chase and Big Joe coming up after us at the top of the hour. Talking some college football here at the end of the show. Mike Borgonzi spoke to the media earlier today. We reacted. There will be plenty more reaction throughout the day on the station from Chase and Joe and DVD at 3 o'clock. Vandy taking on Auburn this weekend. I'm doing sideline for that game on Saturday. The men's basketball team for Vandy is in Orlando, so Kevin Ingram will be down there. So I will be roaming the sidelines for the first time as Vandy takes on Auburn. This is an interesting one. Auburn, clearly talented team. They have not played very well, and that was very evident this past weekend, only putting up 3 points in that loss that eventually ended up getting Hugh Freeze let go. And I kind of jokingly say that maybe Auburn wanted to let Hugh Freeze go before he could fall to 0-4 against Diego Pavia this weekend. He lost to him at Liberty when Diego was with New Mexico State. Then Diego, still at New Mexico State, beat Hugh Freeze in his first year at Auburn. And then last year, Vandy went down to the Plains and beat Auburn again. Low-scoring game, 17-7, I believe, was the final in that game a year ago. Got Vandy bowl eligible. I think this will be a low-scoring game again, but I feel pretty good about Vandy's chances against this Auburn team. I know the interim coach bump is always talked about. We've talked about it a lot this year because of how many midseason firings there have been. The main one around here, Brian Callahan with the Titans at the NFL level, but plenty of firings at the college level. And Hugh Freeze getting let go from Auburn, now the fourth SEC job that is open, joining Florida, LSU, and Arkansas. I don't know if the interim coach bump is going to be much of a factor here, but you do have to think about maybe Auburn does have a little extra juice this weekend after their head coach was let go on Sunday.
Yeah, and what's unfortunate about Auburn is what led to Hugh Freeze's downfall was the fact that he was never able to get quarterback right. He started with Peyton Thorne his first 2 years, then he went in the transfer portal, took a big risk getting Jackson Arnold, and obviously that wasn't the right move. But you look at the rest of the roster, and Cam Coleman, who's a former 5-star receiver, and Eric Singleton, who was the number 1 ranked receiver in the transfer portal from Georgia Tech. The defense is really good. The offensive line is solid. So it really boils down to quarterback. So if you have the right guy calling plays, which I'm not sure who's going to be their interim play caller, they may get a little bit of a bump, but that doesn't discount from the fact that Vanderbilt's at home and they should be able to take care of business after losing to Texas last week.
Is it DJ Durkin who's going to be calling plays for them?
DJ Durkin calls the defensive plays.
Okay,
he's defensive coordinator.
Gotcha.
But he is the interim head coach.
I saw that name pop up as the interim head coach, and I did not know who was going to be calling plays there. So, yeah, it's a big one. And Auburn, there is some pride involved in when your head coach gets fired of going out there and trying to get a win. But Vanderbilt knows what's in front of them, right? We just went through all the scenarios of 10-2 gets you in the conversation. 9-3, you really don't have a shot. So all of these are must-win games the rest of the way. And Auburn's the first one. You get a bye week after. You've got to show up and you've got to play your best football. I hate it for Vandy that they couldn't pull off that win against Texas over the weekend because, man, that onside kick, I was listening, and initially they signaled Vanderbilt football. And so I'm listening to Andrew Allegretta, and he says Vandy football. And we were at a dinner with the team, and everybody's going crazy. And then we hear that they said that Langston Patterson was out of bounds, and just the air gets taken out of the room because you win that game, and not only does winning out ensure your spot in the playoff, but you still feel like you've got some leeway to slip up, and you might still have a chance. That leeway is gone. All of these are must wins the rest of the way. And the Auburn this weekend, maybe you see a little bit more fight now that Hugh Freeze is gone. I'm not so sure. I think Vandy is going to take care of business, but going to be a fun one this weekend. And there are a lot of Auburn fans around here. I would expect there are going to be a lot of Tigers fans in the stadium on Saturday. That's the one fan base that always surprises me how many of them live here. Have you seen that before, Parker? Of like it. Obviously, going to be a lot of Tennessee, a lot of Vandy fans, but I would say maybe the next is Auburn of fans here in Nashville.
Yeah, no, I feel like they're always in Nashville, a central location of the South. You're going to get a widespread variety of SEC fans, Auburn included, because they're pretty close. I don't know how far Auburn is from here.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I don't know if it's super drivable. I mean, it's obviously drivable. It's in the South, but like Tuscaloosa is closer than Auburn. But yes, plenty of Auburn fans here, and I'm sure that they will be out there at First Bank Stadium. But Vandy fans have shown up. They were great for that Missouri game. The crowd pop on the MK Young 80-yard touchdown was electric a couple of weeks ago. And again, big one coming up this weekend, 3 p.m. kickoff over at First Bank Stadium. Vanderbilt taking on Auburn. Commodores 7-2 need a win to keep their college football playoff hopes alive. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We got one more segment on this Wednesday. Well, let's get to your phones. If you've got anything for us, Vanderbilt, college football, Titans, 615-737-1025. Get them in here, and we'll get to those on the other side. Also, maybe some more reaction to Mike Borgonzi's press conference earlier today. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Wednesday. We'll wrap up the show next here on Next Man Up, 1025 The Game. Final segment on this Wednesday. Next Man Up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you. Chasing Big Joe. Coming up next, live from the Omni Nashville Hotel. Plenty of reaction, I'm sure, to Mike Borgonzi's press conference earlier today. Again, tomorrow, Teron Davenport will be with us for his usual Thursday appearance on the program. So we'll get all of TD's thoughts on what Borgonzi had to say, the Titans trade deadline moves, and what they're looking at heading into the bye week mercifully, we've made it to the bye week. And so we'll get all of TD's thoughts tomorrow on the program. Andrew Allegretta will also join at 11:30 to talk some more Vanderbilt football. I said we might react to Borgonzi a little bit more, but I had a thought during the break, and we were talking about Hugh Freeze being fired at Auburn. And this coaching carousel, as has been said a ton over the last few weeks, is going to be maybe the craziest of all time. You've got Penn State open. You've got 4 SEC jobs, including LSU and Florida are open. Now you've got Auburn and Arkansas out there too. And, having gone to Virginia Tech, grown up a Hokie, that job has been getting a lot of buzz in the last couple of days. James Franklin, the rumors were hot and heavy that Franklin was going to be coming to Blacksburg. And the more I think about it, the fact that we haven't heard anything is starting to make me think that Auburn job opening up might have thrown a wrench in all of this, that Auburn fired Hugh Freeze and their first call may have been to Jimmy Sexton about James Franklin to see if he would want to come down to the Plains instead of Blacksburg. And, I don't know what Virginia Tech's going to do if they come up empty on Franklin, because I think he was far and away the home run hire that they could have gotten in this cycle. And I don't think they're going to be in play for a guy like John Sumrall, maybe Alex Golish, but I think he might have better offers on the table. I think you end up having to go to like a Bob Chesney from JMU if James Franklin doesn't end up coming through. So that Auburn job opening when it did might have been the worst time possible for Virginia Tech, because I think if it waited another week for Hugh Freeze to be let go, I think James Franklin may have already been announced as the next Virginia Tech head coach. Instead, I'm sure there's a bidding war going on for his services as maybe not the most sought after candidate on the coaching market, but certainly up there with what he's been able to do at Penn State over the last 12 years.
So you mentioned John Sumrall, and I actually think if Auburn should go after anybody, it should be him. I think he should be number 1 on the list for Auburn, because he's an Alabama guy. Auburn really doesn't need somebody they just need somebody who knows football and a good football coach. And John Sumrall is that. What Hugh Freeze got in trouble with was the play calling.
Yeah.
I think he was able to get away. I think what really boosted his resume was the fact that he was able to beat Nick Saban a couple of times at Ole Miss with Bo Wallace. But outside of that, and Chad Kelly, but outside of that, play calling was very questionable for him this year. And I think John Sumrall is one of the best up and coming, just straight up football guys. And he has Alabama ties. So I think that should be number 1 on their list.
Well, that's the question for some of these SEC programs is, do you go with more of a proven commodity like James Franklin, who has done it at a high level? He went to the college football playoff semifinals a year ago, but you also have the question marks of, is he ever going to eclipse what he's already done at Penn State? Will he ever be able to win a national title? Which, for these SEC programs, with the exception of Arkansas, I think the expectations at LSU, Florida, and Auburn are to eventually be in that national championship conversation every year. So James Franklin maybe isn't a fit there. I don't know. You could also look at Lane Kiffin. I think his name is obviously going to be floated out there, especially for that LSU and Florida
He's up
job.
for like 75 jobs right now.
I mean, and at the very worst, he's going to get a huge raise at Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin is the winner of this coaching carousel for sure, because he's either going to get a super high paying new job at LSU or Florida, where, Ole Miss has resources for sure, but they're not LSU and they're not Florida. And I think Lane Kiffin, I think he does leave. Am I sure about that? No, but I think he does end up leaving. Either way, though, he's the winner, because he's going to get paid a ton of money either to stay or to go. But you do ask the question for some of these programs, or do you want a guy who you may already know his ceiling in James Franklin? And quite honestly, I think you kind of know Lane Kiffin's ceiling too. Maybe he eventually breaks through and gets to the national championship at a program like an LSU, but he's been a head coach at the college level for a very, very long time. is he just gonna suddenly break through and become Nick Saban? I'm not so sure about that. So that's the question marks you asked with that. Do you go with an up and comer like a John Summerall or an Alex Golish who, yeah, maybe don't have the experience at the power conference level, but you don't know what the ceiling is for those guys. And maybe when they get to a spot with those kinds of resources, they can flourish into one of the top coaches in the entire country. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 2349 says James Franklin is 15-30 against top 25 teams at Penn State, 4-21 against top 10, 1-15 against top 5, so on and so forth. He says, yes, he went to the semifinals, but why is he so sought after? I agree for some of these these big name programs, like I was talking about LSU and Florida, like they want to win national championships. Do they believe James Franklin can do that? I don't think so. And I think that's why they haven't been mentioned as a potential James Franklin landing spot over the last few weeks. But for Virginia Tech, getting to where James Franklin had Penn State is a dream. That's exactly what Frank Beamer did for them for 20 years. Like, you were on the doorstep, you can never quite get there. I think Virginia Tech fans, I went there, I think would sign up for that in a heartbeat. 615-737-1025. Let's go to our phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Adam from Portland has called in. Adam, thanks for calling. What you got for us?
Well, I was just going to let you be, but then you're talking about Kiffin leaving. I think you're absolutely right, dude. And I think his legacy is going to be that he was loyal to no one ever in his life. So, like, I've got family, like, we're from Mississippi. Like, all my family's from Mississippi, and they love him. And I'm like, well, we loved him for a year until he did us how Lane does people. And he's going to do Ole Miss the same way. I have no doubt. He finds a better job, he's going to be out of there. And I'm just waiting to watch it, man. Like, I got the popcorn. I'm going to hate him no matter where he goes, no matter what. Like, but I think his legacy above being a pretty good offensive coach is that he has no loyalty to anybody.
Yeah, it's a fair point, Adam. He has been a guy who uses jobs as stepping stones. And that's why I'm pretty confident he's going to leave, because has he shown in the past that he's going to stick around when a better opportunity's out there? No. And I'm guessing he will be announced as the next head coach at LSU, right? Like that, it makes too much sense for him not to be the number one guy at LSU and for him not to want to make that move. Now, they can't announce anything until after the season, right? Like, this may be one of those situations where the handshake agreement has already been made. You look back at the last college basketball season, and there's nothing confirmed from this with Darian DeVries at West Virginia, but the coincidence that they were at an MTE at the same time as Indiana, and right after that, DeVries' son, Tucker, stopped playing with an injury and was able to redshirt still. And then right after the season, he takes the Indiana job. Like, sometimes those things do happen, but you can't announce it until after the season. I wouldn't be shocked if that's already happened with Lane Kiffin and LSU. But with Ole Miss right in the thick of the playoff race, you obviously can't have that come out right now because Lane knows that he still has a duty to those kids to see this season through and see what they can do in the postseason.
Right. And I honestly think Lane, a lot of people hate Lane Kiffin because Adam's right. He hasn't really ever showed loyalty at any point in his coaching career. But if you watch the documentary, he seems on the outside like a changed person. So I foresee Lane, if he does plan on leaving, which I would say LSU and Florida are both better jobs right now than Ole Miss. But honestly, in this age of NIL and transfer portal, if it is a better job, it's not by much, because I do think you can still win a national championship in this day and age at Ole Miss. But I think if he is going to leave, he will stick it out this season, because, I mean, if you look at the remaining schedule, I don't see a world in which they lose another game before they get to the playoff.
They're going to the playoff, and how far do they go? I don't know. The parity does seem increased this year, but I don't think they are at that top level right now. Like, I think if you match them up with Ohio State in the playoffs, whether that's in the quarterfinals or something like that, I think they lose that game. And I don't know if it's down to the wire. But with Lane Kiffin, he did say that he's never made a decision with money in mind. And I actually do believe him in that, right? Because I think the money's going to be about equal between Ole Miss and LSU. Like, Ole Miss is not some beggar program that doesn't have the money to pay Lane Kiffin. Like, they can pay him. I don't think it's going to be about the money. I think it's about where he feels like he has the resources to go win. And LSU, for all of its faults, and, obviously it didn't work out with Brian Kelly, I think you're hard pressed to find a program across the country outside of maybe Alabama or Ohio State that is going to give more resources to football than LSU.
Right. I would argue that LSU is the best job in America. It would be hard for me to say no to that.
Right. And you got a new president, a new athletic director. Like, I think it makes too much sense. If I had to guess, I think Lane Kiffin ends up being the head coach at LSU. I would think Florida maybe goes for John Summerall. And then Auburn's the mystery one, because Auburn, again, they've got the money. They've got the pedigree to go out and get an elite coach that they think can get this program back to being relevant at the top of the SEC. Do they want a James Franklin, who, again, more proven, but can he take the next step? Or do you go for an up-and-comer like an Alex Golish or something like that to come there? Going to be a heck of a coaching carousel. It already is. There's tons of high-profile jobs already open. There could be more coming. And every job that gets filled, another one opens up. So lots to look forward to as we make our way down the stretch of the college football season. Been a fun show today. Again, Mike Borgonzi spoke at 10 a.m., almost 30 full minutes from the Titans general manager. I thought it was one of the best press conferences that the Titans franchise has had in a long time, to at least share some sort of vision for what they want to do to build this roster back up to being competitive. I thought he was honest. I thought he was relatively open for what he could speak about. And we'll have plenty more reaction on the station with that throughout the day. And again, Teron Davenport on the show tomorrow. We'll get TD's thoughts on everything that Borgonzi had to say today. And again, all the moves the Titans made leading up to the trade deadline. It was great to be back from France. I will be back tomorrow and moving forward. Excited for tomorrow's show. Chase and Big Joe are coming up next with plenty more reaction here on 102.5 The Game.